let me see, I don't know, we're not in the right spot here. Let me find, yeah. First thing I want to talk about is Memorial Day. This is a time of remembrance. So if you've known anybody that's been in the service and has passed, and I remember the first time I went to war, I wrote this long letter to my son, and I only had one child at the time, and just telling him how to be a man. He was just probably 2 or so at the time, but tell him how to be a man, tell him how to live his life, and that I loved him and all that good stuff. When you look at the scriptures, that's what God's done for us, and gives us guidance. So just, I've had, I think last count I had about 42 friends that I've known that have passed. Not all of them were. We had one guy that was climbing K2, which is by Everest, and he didn't unhook. He unhooked and went to hook, and he was supposed to hook and then unhook, and he decided to go a little fast and fell into a crevice, and after a few thousand feet, couldn't see his body anymore anyway. So just different reasons, But the one thing it tells us in the scriptures is a man, there's an appointed time to be born, and there's an appointed time that we pass, and we don't have control over that. And it is what it is. The only thing we have control over is where we're going at the end. Being a pastor, being a chaplain, being a former soldier, actually as a pastor I haven't seen too many, but as a chaplain, I mean, I've seen a few dead bodies here and there now at this point, and people that have passed, and prior to in my previous career I've seen a few, and the one thing I could tell you is there's a difference when you pass. At least this is my experience. And that's one of the things that helped me make my decision, like with God, is when you're passed away and you don't have God, there's no fear on your face, but you look dead. But the ones that had Christ, and I would say in retrospect, some of them I didn't know, but they look at peace. So when we pass, we're just going from this location to the next location, And unfortunately, there's evil that happens in this world, And we always wonder, why is there so much evil in this world, Well, it is a heart issue and a head issue, and we've been talking about that, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I think the good in this world and history has outweighed the bad. See, good affects bad, or good affects evil, holiness affects evil, but evil affects good. Unfortunately, the evil that affects good hurts us more. It's more devastating. It's like, if you look back at your childhood memories, you reflect on the good times, but the bad times are the ones that you still hold on to. You haven't been able to let those go. And we do that as adults, when we have something happen to us and we don't get it resolved, and then we carry that over, and just learning to be able to allow your heart to be healed, and healed through Jesus Christ. At the jail, and I've been saying this here as of late, the one, this is the example I give them. There's a phone on the wall in most of the places they can call. And I asked them, what's the purpose of the phone? They said, a call. And I said, the person that made it on purpose. And most of you probably heard this already, because I said this a couple weeks ago. And the phone was made on purpose, and it's for a purpose. The birds are made on purpose, for a purpose. It's indeed the bugs. But the bugs are made on purpose, and for a purpose, to clean up the grounds, right? Especially in the jungles. And we're made on purpose, for a purpose. There was no mistake why we were made. God knitted us in the womb. And just like if that phone breaks, the person that made the phone can come and make it as good as new. Right? Well, God can make us as good as new, because He's the one that made us. Now the difference between the phone and us is the phone has no choice on being made as good as new. sometimes we don't want to be made as good as new because we like our misery. You know, we're working with a lot of soldiers. Since COVID's happened, actually, my opportunities, I guess, to counsel soldiers with problems have diminished quite a bit. Don't have a good reason other than it is what it is. But the one thing I did notice is there's a good portion of people who find identity in their self-misery. And they don't want out of that misery, and they'll come to you and until they figure that you're not going to help them stay in that misery, you actually want them to be moved from that misery, they'll leave. You know. And with Christ, if you allow him in your heart, you know, and you truly allow him to penetrate you, you'll learn just to allow things. Yes, you recognize them. Yes, you can be hurt, but you're not going to get bitter. You know, you're not going to get angry. You're not going to hold grudges. You're going to do everything you can to make amends. Even when the other person doesn't want to, those things happen. You know, I've given the example of the pastor. You know, I had two pastor friends that, well, they were actually our pastors. One we made amends, and the other one didn't want to. You know, but that's not my responsibility, is it? See, I think a lot of times we get hurt because we think it's our responsibility to fix it. When we can't. Jesus is the only one that can fix it, and they have to allow him to fix it. Does that make sense? You know, because, I mean, you look at, like I talked about at the beginning, why is there so much evil in this world? Well, when we make our own decisions, we can see throughout history that we never make good decisions in the sense of humanity. Never, ever. Old Testament's just full of it, right? I mean, you think about it. They go into Sodom, right? Sodom and Gomorrah, right? The two cities. Angels are standing out, right? Or inside the house, Lot's house, right? Who do they request? The girl? I mean, I would have never given up my daughter, but they're going to give up the daughter. And who do they want? The men. I mean, that's like today. It's so backwards. It's because our hearts are not right. You know? And if you ever wondered to yourself, well, is there a God? That alone tells you that there is. He's tugging on your heart. You know? I mean, there's no way that any of this stuff when I walk outside is done by accident. It's just, in my mind, that it just seems impossible that nothing, and even if there was something that for some reason, I know they said there was nothing and then it blew up somehow, right? But even if there was something, that two planets collided or two suns collided and blew up and made one sun and the 9 planets floated all of a sudden by it, and all this stuff happened and it just became sheer accident, you know? I mean, if that's the case, why don't we have some humans with gills then? Because it seems like there's a lot more water than there is land, you know? Well, apparently there is. I watched a special the other day. There's mermaids, apparently. I don't know. But the reason I called this Highway to Hell is because when you let your mind control your heart, you're not on your way to heaven. Okay? Whatever it is. You know, I could be bitter. You know, I mean, you think about it. Here I'm a guy that's been molested. You know, when I say molested, keep in mind, if you've ever had this situation happen to you, it's like, oh, I've got molested before. It's not a one-off thing. It's a process, okay? But I would say 3 accounts. The first one I don't think I could remember. But I do remember one of my earliest memories I have is I had actually, it was like, I'm going to say it was a G.I. Joe doll. It wasn't going to be no Ken Barbie, all right, but a G.I. Joe Barbie doll, and then my sister's Barbie dolls, and I'd have their clothes off, and then them, you know, trying to make babies. How would I know that at that age? And then in kindergarten and in 6th grade. And I could hold that in my heart and be bitter, you know, and all the other things that have happened. And you know, I know Teresa, we were talking one time, there's points. She has a master's degree in counseling, so does Dave, and this stuff, and I don't know the exact degrees, but But when you're studying, there's points that are made. Like if you get 1 point, you're probably going to be fine, But I think she said there were 7 points in this thing, and I had like 6 of them. I should have been all messed up, and I was. But I was functional in society because of my job. I had a top secret clearance. Can't let that lapse, Kind of a rule follower. But I was still messed up in my brain and my morals. Then I met Jesus, and nobody made me change. Nobody told me I had to change. If they would have, I probably wouldn't have came. But God changed me. He changed me. And my objective is to do my very best to work with whoever it is. I probably talk too much about homosexuality or transgenderness because to me it's a hot topic, that's especially the transgender stuff and all the other stuff. It's just confusing in my brain. You know what I mean? Well, but if they came in, we would work with them. Why would we not? Now accepting them for who they are, is that loving on them? Well, we do accept you for who you are now, but I do anticipate change in the future. And see, the thing of it is, it's with anything. None of us came into God saying, oh, we're perfect and we're walking in our, and all this stuff has also been wiped clean. It just doesn't work that way. But over time, we should have progress. Over time, things start to look different if you're truly walking with God. And there's going to be a time where this and this matters. Right now, we can go through life. I don't want to be a thief on the cross, honestly. I don't want to be at the very last moment saying, Jesus, receive me. You know what I mean? I want to have assurance that I'm doing things well. Don't let your thoughts control your heart. Now, I remember at the very beginning when we talked, we had one teaching on the brain, remember? All the rest has been on the heart since then. There's a whole lot more about the heart in the scriptures than there is the mind. But at the very beginning, someone sent me, after the service, they sent me, your heart is, what is it? Reparate, or whatever, you got huh? Yeah, but that's your mind. Your heart was evil in the man's heart. All this stuff, you didn't even, why you didn't got to the heart yet, first off? You know what I mean? But yes, your heart could be evil. I understand that. I mean, there's plenty of, just like this young man, he had evil in his heart that did the shooting, and we wonder, how could this happen? And I feel bad for the law enforcement that are like, why did we not respond sooner? Well, we don't know. Okay, we don't know. And that's unfortunate. And would have we done it different? Sure, would have done it different. But I can tell you, as a survivor of combat, that you make the best decisions that you make at the moment in time. And if you always look back, oh, I could have done it better, you could have done it better. But the reason you look back to could have done it better is not so I can find myself in fault or in misery, but so I don't make those same mistakes. That's why we look back. But all we can do, truthfully, all we can do is pray to the Lord and say, help me be better. And then represent you better when I'm out there. Represent you better even when I am in here. That's what we need to do, is be a representation of Christ, the salt of the world. You guys want to know, if you guys have heard of this salt and the light of the world, right? Yes. Right? Most of us has. You guys might have figured this out a long time ago. But I had to listen to Gordon Ramsay, which I'm assuming is not a Christian, to figure out the salt part of it. Because he was talking about how you put a little bit of salt on your food and it enhances the flavor. And that's when it's dawned on me. Because they always taught preservative. The salt's the preservative, which could be true. But if we're the light to the world, we want to have a good flavor to the world as well. And the day we see all this falling away, it tells us at the end times there's going to be a great falling away. That's why it's important that our hearts stay strong with the Lord, is so we're not falling away, right? I'm going to read some scripture here. The Lord searches the heart and tests the mind to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds. So what's this mean? I, the Lord, searches the heart, right? But then he tests your mind. So it doesn't say he searches your mind, because what's in your heart and your mind need to align, because when they don't. And do we not go through tests? Do we not have things happen in our world? In times where part of the problems that we have is due to our own actions, right? We don't do things right all the time. Instead of looking at it as misery, look at it as a training opportunity. The Lord's training you for something bigger, right? So the next time you run across this, you handle it better, you know? And you do a better job at it. Confession, right? Now, for all you former Catholics, I did get this from a Catholic one, but I couldn't find anything that said confession on it. But this isn't a confession or confessional like the Catholics, all right? In the time of judgment, God will expose you. So even if you think it's unfair, you know, this person is doing this and this is unfair. Well, you're right, it probably is unfair. But you're still to act in a manner that represents God despite the fairness to you, or the lack of fairness, right? Because God will expose that at the end. And really, what authority do I have? I had someone call me yesterday, and he's wanting to come to do visitation at the jails. And I appreciate everybody that goes there, and the inmates do. I talk to them all. As a matter of fact, when you guys don't show up, they ask me, when are we going to have somebody come again, you know? Especially because they get released by category, so it's about every other week they get to have chapel. But he calls me and he says, you know, he's talking to me, and I said, yeah, this is the steps that you'll need to do. He goes, so you have authority to do this. You're the head chaplain. And I said, no, I don't have authority to say yes. I probably could say no, and they'd listen to me. But I don't have authority to say yes, you know. See, authority is something that can make a decision for the outcome of the results that might happen. So a judge, like a police officer, he doesn't have the authority to prosecute you. He has the authority to arrest you for breaking the law. But the judge has the authority to enforce that law. And see, this is what happens with God. He has the authority, I don't. So I could point my finger at you all day long. But does it matter? Because I don't have the authority. So why do I do that, right? There's no need to do that. What I need to do is try to work with you the best I can. Amen. Now, if you don't receive it, that's not my fault, right? But then when God judges my heart and looks at me, then I'm hoping that I did a good job. Because that's who I'm going to be held accountable to. You know, the church is funny, and I know we're a country church, and what that means is nobody even knows we're out here unless you live out here or someone told you or you accidentally found us, right? Because we're not getting drive-bys, all right? So yeah, we can always be small. That's not up to me, right? But I've learned to be happy with what God's given me. You know, and the fact of meetings, let's say we did grow and we get a couple hundred people in here. Some of you guys be like, all right, you're too big, I'm leaving, right? You know, that just happens in church. People come and go. You know, I think I'm a little bit. All right, that's loud. Where's it coming from? Is that all your phones? God, yes. Threw me off, man. You know, now I am off. What was I talking about? Are you not paying attention? Sure. She's even taking notes, man. So, I know, I got that part, but I still got lost. But anyways, God's judge, small church. Thank you guys all. You all, see, this was a test. See if you're listening. How many of you all read the scriptures? Yes. I'm going to start asking that because more and more of you are starting to raise your hands. So I'm going to ask this every week. So all right, finally, I'm going to raise my hand so I don't feel like foolish or whatever. I don't know, whatever guilt that I'm placing upon you, all right? But when we're walking with the Lord, okay, There are going to be people that are going to say things that hurt. You know you guys ever watch the radio show? And Ron does the radio. It's really a radio show. It's free to record, so we record it, you know. And Ron's been with me for a long time doing the show, actually from the beginning. Me and him started it together. And the purpose of the show, and the reason it's called Looking for the Evidence, is because when I first came into ministry, I was like, I know John 3:16, and that's it, right? And then the military paid for college, so that's why I think you should be educated if you're going to lead people. You should be educated in whatever you're doing. It's kind of like, I'm going to be an electrician, but I'm not going to go to school, right? Or a doctor, right? You can get doctors in Haiti. They'll pull out, I've watched them pull out lungs, livers, all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And they asked me if I wanted to be fixed. No, I don't, you crazy. I know, I'm just going off today. Teresa's looking at me like, would you get on topic? All right? I'm going to strangle you, all right? Confession. All right, we'll get back on the topic. Confession is being right with the Lord. All right? Last week, someone talked to me, and I talked about reconciliation. And it's probably been taught wrong in the church. I never really thought about it until last week. In fact, I didn't even think about it until later because I called the person. All right? And obviously, the teaching last week, doesn't always apply to everybody, but it hit this one individual pretty hard. And they said, I've forgiven, but I'm not going to be around them anymore. I won't get around them. So just because when we forgive, it doesn't mean I have to put myself into that position. And I said, yes, you do. You should go back and try to reconcile with them. Now, if they don't want to reconcile with you and they don't want to forgive you, then you've done your part. But if you just forgive in your heart and make no effort to reconcile, right, then you really